Do you ever look around and think, I don't belong here? This feeling can come up for a number of reasons. But recently I felt it in restaurants, at Walmart of all places, on social media, and in advertising. Even church for me is a little weird. Like online church is different than being in person with everyone. Dreaming about the summer events that were all planned but never happened. I mean, this is not the world I came to know. This is not what I'm used to. This is not my world. Maybe you think you're alone in this, like me. I struggle with that, but we think perhaps God doesn't understand, and yet He absolutely does. You see, you have a support system that can help you find your place even in the hardest and weirdest of circumstances. For the next 3 weeks, we're going to be in the book of Daniel. We're going to study the story of Daniel. Daniel had grown up in a society that was purposefully and wonderfully set apart by God. He had followed the laws given by God to live a certain way that connected him in worship to his Creator. What a cool thing. But where our story begins, Daniel is taken from that. He's in a whole new world, and I can't help but think that he can relate to us when we think, man, this is not my world. And so where we find Daniel, there is a ruthless king, cutthroat politicians, just power-hungry, self-serving, crowd-following people. And Daniel he doesn't fit in. Let me read from Daniel. This is Daniel chapter 1. And I'm going to start at verse 8. It says, "But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. Therefore he asked the chief of the eunuchs to allow him not to defile himself. And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who assigned your food and your drink. For why should he see that you are in worse condition than the youths who are of your own age?" Daniel sets out that he will eat vegetables for 10 days as a test. And this is what happens in verse 15. "At the end of the 10 days, it was seen that they, Daniel and his other friends, were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food. So the steward took away their food and wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables." You see, Daniel doesn't eat the food that the king sets aside for them. Instead, he chooses vegetables as a thing that he sets apart for God. He still sets apart some things for God, even in the midst of this. And then we'll fast forward the story a bit. Daniel and his friends are part of this program. It's a 3-year deal where they're trained in all the wisdom of the empire, and essentially all these wise men and magicians become the Google search engine for the king. One day the king has a request that is, a little bit abnormal for any search engine. The king asks for his wise men to interpret a dream. It goes south from there. But that's where I want you guys to read. So now it's time for you to read this story and see what happens for yourself. Ask questions of the story with your small groups. Dive in and see what God has to teach you today. I want you guys to turn to Daniel 2, verses 12 through 30, as you continue with the lesson today.